Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by
A2H, engineers, architects, and planners, creating an enhanced quality of life for their clients and our community. More about A2H's services and markets is at a2h.com.
The WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
The impact of the proposed I-55 roundabout tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, publisher of the Memphis Daily News. Thanks for joining us. I'm joined tonight by Lauren Cruz, a developer in the French Fort area. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Paul Morris, the outgoing head of the Downtown Memphis Commission. Thanks for being here.
Sure.
Keith Ingram, state senator in Arkansas. Thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
And Bill Dries, senior reporter with the Memphis Daily News. And I thought I'd take a second. We talked about I started the show with the I-55 roundabout, and we'll talk about that project and the big impact, but also sort of the neighborhood and the connections between West Memphis, the French Fort area, downtown, and so on. And so, Bill, just help me through this. Where we are now, there have been many years of people talking about how to redo this connection. And people think of coming up I-55, and maybe they go down to Riverside Drive into downtown, or they take the very strange turn that is actually a highway and get on what's called the Old Bridge. There are a variety of different plans that came up. 60,000 cars is what TDOT says goes through that intersection, that interchange right now. And sometime in the summer, TDOT came forward with a plan that involved a big roundabout and moving the highway, and we may have a map of that, but part of it was going to close the Old Bridge for 9 months. Did I hit the high points on this?
Yeah, the original estimate wound up being something like 2 years. Then it changed to 9 months. Where we are now is that the state has taken all of this back and they're looking at it again to see if there is a better way that they can possibly do it, because this is a major corridor for this region, actually. There's a lot of traffic that goes both ways on that bridge, and a shutdown of 9 months would have some major implications.
And Keith Ingram, you were very much opposed to them shutting the bridge down for 9 months, I believe. Am I right?
Oh, no question about it. This, by TDOT's own study, they had a study that was done in 2006. The impact to this region, if both bridges went down, was about $4.1 billion or $4.3 billion a year. So even dividing that in half, that is a major impact. And it's just not West Memphis that's being affected. It's this entire West Tennessee, East Arkansas region that's being affected.
But you would agree that something needs to happen there, right? I mean, it's that there's a problem with that interchange and so on, or maybe you're not as concerned about that because most of the problems are on the Tennessee side.
No, I think we all agree that there's a solution. Unfortunately, the region was not included in the design phase, so we don't know what TDOT rejected as alternatives or not.
Yeah, and I should say we try to have TDOT on, but right now as they do go through their reviews, they did not want to really talk about what's going on. Lauren, you are trying to do developments in the French Fort neighborhood, one of this very historic neighborhood. A lot of people don't know it's there. I mean, they maybe drive by. Probably maybe a lot of people know that the Metal Museum's down there, the Old Marine Hospital, which I believe you own, and a series of other projects that you have put forward a plan to kind of on the style of maybe Harbortown or other parts of downtown.
Yeah, it's kind of a gem of an area. It sits on the river bluff under a canopy of trees with the, like you said, the National Ornamental Metal Museum next door. It has the arts, and it's soon to be connected by the new roundabout that's been proposed, or the new road systems. It's within a stone's throw of downtown Memphis, yet it has a lot of underutilized properties that can be developed and create some badly needed cash flow for the city and the county.
What was your take on them closing the bridge? I mean, I think you want this roundabout to happen, right? Maybe in the sense that it would connect.
Well, it's one of the only places in the nation where you have to slow down to about 25 miles an hour on the interstate, okay? And I know that something has to be done there. I'm not so sure that you have to close the bridge down to do it. I think there may be some other ways to do it other than closing the bridge down. The thing that disturbs me the most is that they have been working on the project for 15 years. When you announce, an entity or government announces that they're going to do something, and it takes them 15 years to do it, what you do is you actually shut down progress in that area, I mean, to nothing.
Because you don't know what
that
to plan
causes
for.
further decay of buildings and blight in the area, and you know, the property values to depreciate. But I think that there's potentially a way that they can do it without shutting the bridge down. But if they absolutely have to shut the bridge down, I see it as one step back, 2 steps forward. I think it has to be done. But if it took them 12 years to get to 3 plans, the original 3 plans, y'all may remember that they got down to A, B, and C. It took them 12 years to get there. And then once they got there, we, with the help of the Downtown Memphis Commission, that was Andy Kitzinger, and I and some others were talking about the 3 plans and what they didn't do. And so some of them didn't distribute the traffic properly, some further disconnected, one plan further disconnected the French Fort area from the downtown core. We came up with the idea for the roundabout, and we presented it to them. And this roundabout saves 5 acres of green space, it distributes traffic better, it saves 7 to 10 homes in the neighborhood, 2 businesses, and you know, I couldn't figure out why they couldn't come up with that themselves. So I guess what I'm saying, if it takes them 12 years to figure that out, I'm a little concerned about leaving it up to them to whether we actually got to close the bridge down or not.
And we said we were going to try to find some residents, Sarah Lewis, namely, who is a resident of French Fort, couldn't work that out. But there was a plan that was 9 homes, like you just said, that was going to be torn out. They went back, they came forward with this plan. So, Paul, all these plans, I mean, talk about the importance of connecting to this area, because if people haven't seen it, it's a beautiful neighborhood. It's a very stable neighborhood, a lot of history about it, and it does seem like, I mean, you would think it would be impossible to have the vision that Lauren has unless you look at other things downtown that have happened. I mean, these real incredible redevelopments that have happened. The Harahan Bridge runs by near there that you're in charge of. But talk about connecting to that neighborhood and the importance of kind of continuing to expand the downtown in a connected way.
Well, the French Fort neighborhood is a very stable, long-time neighborhood with beautiful homes and beautiful yards, and it's sort of quiet. And some of the neighbors that own homes there, I think, want it to continue to be quiet. So there's some opposition, frankly, among some of the neighbors of connecting it more to the city. But those of us who care about the larger city and really want to develop downtown do see a lot of value in the French Fort and the kind of development that Lauren's been talking about to revitalize some of these old structures and bring more people to that neighborhood and connect it to downtown. It is a great opportunity to connect, especially with the Main-to-Main project with the Big River Crossing next to the Harahan. That'll help tie in that neighborhood as well. But I was telling somebody, I heard about this project when I started this job about 5.5 years ago, and that project had been on the planning for a decade, and I learned to prioritize my efforts, and I realized that making any efforts relying upon a road project probably wasn't the best use of my time, so we didn't focus a lot, frankly, on relying upon this project to be complete. And I think that turned out to be wise, because I will have ended my term and the project won't have started.
Yeah, Bill.
Keith, in terms of there were some assurances, I guess, that were made when this got down to 9 months, where TDOT said, okay, well, we can guarantee that the new bridge is going to be 100%, that there's not going to be any interruptions on there. And that didn't go over so well from folks who drive the new bridge every day, the Hernando de Soto Bridge, we should say. So was it realistic for the state to say we can set up detours around this and kind of guarantee that you won't have any roadblocks on the new bridge?
You know, I don't think so. I question the traffic counts that have been used. I think you'd have a parking lot on 40, quite honestly. I think downtown Memphis would be a gridlock with vehicles and trucks trying to find alternate routes. I think in some ways in the presentations I saw, it was a little disingenuous, and I've said this before, that they said that it was 6 lanes. TDOT claimed that it's 6 lanes. We all know that as soon as you get off on the eastern side of the bridge, it goes to 2 lanes. Mm-hmm. And so I just don't think that is realistic to believe that you're not going to impact that traffic and cause traffic flows. Also, the 9 months with construction, we know how nebulous that is. I mean, it's taking a best guess. And I mean, coming out here today, I think the project here at 240 and 40, the Nashville exit, I think that project's well over a year behind. So with something that is vital and critical to this nation, as both 40 and 55 bridges are, it's not something to be taken lightly, and it's certainly something not to just take a target guess at we can make it in 9 months.
Mm-hmm. So is there a scenario that you see, or is this something that is still forming at this point?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One, I think when this project was announced, I think that people thought the bridge was going to be shut down. I don't think that people actually realized it was a flyover on the Tennessee side. Mm-hmm. And, you know, TDOT sort of took, I think, the idea that since the project was on the Tennessee side, that they didn't engage. Nobody in Arkansas, certainly in West Memphis, Crittenden County, or Eastern Arkansas, was afforded any of the opportunity that was afforded on the Tennessee side as to meet with, as the French Fort residents did, as Lauren is talking about, that his idea of the roundabout, there was no ideas solicited on the Arkansas side other than they were going to shut this bridge down to do it. So you take all that together, it's sort of a bad witch's brew in how TDOT went about trying to garner support for this. Now, I'm sending a letter, I've drafted a letter to send to Commissioner Schroer. We are 10 weeks after the announcement that this had been put off for a year to restudy, and we were going to have a more transparent, inclusive group to work with, and I've yet to hear a word from TDOT about that. So I still fear that we're headed down this same road, and at the end of it, it's just going to cause us to take more time, more effort, and lead to things that we would rather be more productive with, because the interchange needs to be fixed.
Lauren, time is not your friend in terms of development. What do these delays mean?
Probably 75 to 80% of what we're proposing is dependent upon the roundabout and the reconnection to downtown. But we do have some projects that we are trying to get up and going. It's a major hurdle if you can't tell the banks or the investors where the road's going to be. It makes it very difficult to borrow the money for the projects. And this is the reason that we have, like the old hotel there, which is frankly, that I own, that is a blight on the entryway of the community. You can't, until we know exactly where the roads are going to be, it's going to be difficult to find the funds to do it. The funds are the actual equity, and the banks are willing to work with us. We have, and investors as well. So everything is there, and we're ready to go. We just need to know where the road systems are going to be.
And Paul referenced this, but you have heard from some neighbors in French Fort about the old hotel building, which is part of your plan. What do you say to them about your plans for it and the current state of the
frankly,
building?
I sympathize with them, okay, because it is bringing down the property values in the area, okay. The property values in that particular area dropped by about 55%. During this 8-year period of the recession, when typically across the city, the property values, commercial residential, fell about 25 to 35%, and I think that additional is due to this holdup of this new alignment of I-55 Crump.
So is the old hotel building kind of your leading edge there? Do you want to?
Well, it's in the entryway of the community. Mm-hmm. Now, we have actually had several opportunities to develop the business, I mean the building. However, they are not conducive to what we were proposing going forward, and I don't believe it's something to be an asset to the community there now. So I have turned down many opportunities to develop the building. I mean, we've had everything from penal institution to truck stops, to gas station, convenience stores, and low-end hotels such as that. But I think I want to say something about what he was mentioning there. I think that TDOT has played to the politics of the neighborhood. There are several people in the neighborhood that are very well politically connected and connected to the media as well. And I think they played to the politics of that without really engaging a lot of the other major stockholders. I mean, here we've got the mayor of West Memphis. He didn't know anything about the bridge being shut down. 25% of the people that go across that old bridge are going to the Southland Greyhound Park, for example. That's one of the fastest growing businesses in Mid-South today. Since the floods in Tunica, we're down to 200 employees. They're back up to almost 700. Troy Keepman, the director or president, there knew nothing about it. 25% of the businesses that go on Main Street in Memphis come across those bridges. And I didn't engage the people in the Main Street or downtown area either.
Paul, you've done a bunch of development projects and the main domain, the redevelopment. I mean, not that I don't know if you claim you've done everything perfectly, but what is you're a governmental entity, more of a quasi-governmental entity. You've worked with lots of different funding sources. How should TDOT or a group like TDOT approach this? Because you do have so many different factors. Some people probably even are listening saying, well, look, it's TDOT, it's Tennessee money. We don't care about Arkansas, we just care about Tennessee. But is that really, I mean, it just sounds like there's kind of a breakdown in communication here. What's you can't, burn any bridges, you're get fired, you're going out. So how should they do this? How should they bring people together and solicit the kind of input and get the kind of feedback to have a better solution?
Well, I wouldn't presume to give TDOT necessarily criticism. I would just say that I think that they know what they need to do now, which is to involve the rest of the community. I have learned that through road projects, and I'm sure this is true in all 50 states, they tend to take a long, long time. And sometimes these transportation planners will communicate with stakeholders years and years in advance and have public meetings. And I've been to some of these public meetings about projects way off in the distance, and nobody shows up because there's no sense of urgency, there's no sense of meaning to those early meetings. So a lot of times the transportation officials will claim on the back end when they get criticized for not having consulted, they'll point to the numerous public meetings they had over the course of years that no one attended. And so you kind of sympathize with these transportation planners about that, because until they say they're about to break ground and close a bridge, the media doesn't cover it, the public doesn't get outraged, and people don't show up and argue about it. Having said that, I think that obviously now we're at a place where everybody does know about it and people are very concerned about it, and TDOT does need to affirmatively reach out to West Memphis and to the Main Street businesses who are also very concerned about the impact on their businesses of a shutdown, and others, and work with us. And we've actually reached out to TDOT more recently to offer our services because we are so closely connected to the downtown businesses that expressed a lot of alarm about this, and so we'd like to help work with them. And I think that's one lesson that TDOT has learned, is working with those local organizations that have those connections.
Yeah, Bill.
So Paul, in terms of your development vision as head of the Downtown Memphis Commission, this is a bit of a unique mix because this is a major freight corridor that's next to a residential area that's on the other side of Crump, and you've got a whole lot going on in that area and some very diverse uses of it. Do you normally encounter a balance like that has to be maintained, or is this area pretty unique?
Well, it is unique, and what Lauren said is true. When government has a plan that's not certain what exactly is going to happen or when it's going to happen, that does freeze private development. And it goes beyond just the French Fort neighborhood, but other areas around there. There's a lot of development maybe waiting to happen for a clear understanding of exactly what and exactly when is going to happen with this transportation project. I do think the roundabout solution, which makes a lot of sense, if we can go forward with that somehow without shutting the bridge down, I think everyone, including TDOT, would agree with that. What they had told me, insisted to me before, is that they'd looked at everything and there was no other way to do it. And now I'm glad they're going back to the drawing board to see if, maybe they missed a stone and maybe they can unturn some other idea.
Is there any irony? You were mayor of West Memphis for many years, back in the 80s, 90s, I think that's what we said, and there's a kind of irony that a pedestrian bike bridge that project will get done before this interchange gets done, you know, and that the Harahan Bridge, the main-to-main connector, is getting done. I mean, in the next, year or so, Paul? Is that right? You've been very involved in that. And that was a real collaborative kind of situation, right? I mean, you all had a lot to say about how, you know, and tying into your trails and tying into the Echo Park, and that, you know, everyone needed to work together for the region, not as Arkansas versus Tennessee, Memphis versus West Memphis, right?
Right. I think one of the reasons, working with Paul, one of the reasons that we got this grant, quite honestly, because it was a collaborative effort. We filled a niche that they were looking for in Tiger grants because they were encouraging states to work together. So I think without the collaborative effort, we would not have received that grant. So yes, I mean, and it's a single purpose issue. I would have told you working with the railroad was probably going to be a lengthy period, but the railroad certainly moved as swiftly as it's able to in working out and making this project happen. But you know, you mentioned approximately 60,000 cars a day.
That's
I think it's well, I think the actual is 48. But they did a study, I think, that's very interesting in either 2001 with Wilbur Smith and Associates. And level of service is graded on vehicular traffic from A to F. Right now, it is at a C level, about 48,000. They predicted in this study that Wilbur Smith did in 2001 that it would be 2023 when the bridge would reach capacity, and that capacity on 55 was 48,000. That would take it to a level F. And there's no way to expand the 55 bridge to accommodate any more traffic. So one of the questions that I think we all have is, why are we spending $60 million for this roundabout and flyover when there might be a simpler solution? And I would give you an example. If you take 55 north, when they doubled that ramp, it took away the backup on the traffic on 55 on the northern loop, where you loop around. It took away. What's to say that you don't double the ramp and let the Riverside Drive traffic merge into the two that are there? You do that for a lot less money. In fact, what you're doing is you're spending $60 million and putting a 55-mile-an-hour ramp that would be considered an A connector to a bridge that's an F-rated level of service. In terms of
the capacity of the bridge, right, you're feeding all those cars into it.
That's right. You can't expand it. So why would you spend $60 million for an A capacity to connect to a bridge that is a F on LOS or level of service?
Okay. Let me switch a little bit. We talked about main-to-main, and we're talking a little bit before the show. And of course, I introduced you as outgoing head. You started what year?
2010, so 5.5 years ago or so, yeah.
Towards the end of the recession. I mean, just celebrate or lament your term as head of the Downtown Memphis Commission for a minute. What have you been most proud of? What do you wish you had gotten done that you couldn't get done?
Well, I've had a lot of fun doing it, and I've enjoyed working on the main-to-main project. As Senator Ingram mentioned, that is nothing short of miraculous that that's things getting done and the pace it is and in the schedule it is. And it is because of the partnership with West Memphis, the 2 states, 2 cities, 2 counties, the private sector, and all levels of government getting that done. And being given the opportunity to be the project leader and the person that coordinates all that has been really fantastic and a great honor, and I've really enjoyed it. And we're not done yet. We're going to get it done hopefully within the next 12 months.
And you'll stay on that probably beyond your term as Downtown Memphis head?
Yes, subject to, this is a City of Memphis project, so the City of Memphis mayor selected me to be the project leader, and I will offer up my services to continue doing that to see it through to completion.
So again, let's go to the other side. Over the last 5 years, what do you wish had gone differently? What do you wish you'd done differently, or what do you wish had happened differently downtown?
Well, we've had some bottoming out, I would say, of the employment downtown, the employment base, the office market. Yeah. That has been our weakest segment. We bring so many people to enjoy downtown to visit. So many people are living there. We can't build residential units fast enough. but we need to get more people to work downtown, and that's actually starting to have some traction. The downtown businesses that exist are growing. You've had a lot of growth from Archer Malmo, St. Jude, the Medical Center, Baker Donaldson, other major employers, and we're starting to see a lot of startup and smaller businesses want to relocate to the downtown area. But that is a lament, I would say, is that I wish more people work downtown.
Why do downtowns matter? We focus, I mean, I know there's somebody out there listening, rolling their eyes saying, you're so focused on downtown.
Right.
Why are you focused on downtown? It's just one neighborhood.
Well, one thing I like to say is there is no suburb without an urb. There is no city without a downtown, a densely populated area that brings the vibrancy. Even people that don't live downtown or even work downtown, having a downtown with a sports arena and museums, it brings the culture, it brings the art. It's the common gathering place for the whole region. We're the downtown for West Memphis. I've been over to West Memphis, Rotary, Kiwanis over there. They love downtown Memphis. I mean, we are the downtown for this tri-state region. We are the attractor. We're the common gathering ground. We're what makes this community and what defines it. It is what, when people around the world think of Memphis, they don't think of I-240 Poplar. That's not the image in their mind. They think of downtown. That's the shots. That's the skyline shots for this city.
All right, Bill, any last questions here? We got a minute left.
Just about the development of the Eco Park on the Arkansas side of the river. Where is that at this point?
Right now, we're having meetings on it. It is certainly on the ground floor level, but it has tremendous potential. It has come a long way. It is forming. And I think it's going to be a great attraction. It's going to be a great tie-in for what we're doing with the Main to Main project. I've got really great hopes and great aspirations that we'll see that happen.
The views of the city from what are now those farmers' fields over there are spectacular, like nothing you've ever seen, and it's a very rich historical area.
Bill gets the last word. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. Join us again next week. Good night.
A2H, engineers, architects, and planners, creating an enhanced quality of life for their clients and our community. More about A2H's services and markets is at a2h.com.